How does a single dream turn into a broadcasting media empire at the age of 72? Raven Blair Glover, inspired by Napoleon Hill's book Think and Grow Rich, shares her extraordinary journey from contemplating suicide to finally fulfilling her dream at the age of 55 of having her own radio show, and now at age 72 owning a broadcast media empire. Raven is fascinating. You're going to love this episode. Would you like to think and grow rich? If so, keep on listening. This podcast is dedicated to those who have found their way from fear to freedom, and for those who are considering undertaking this amazing journey. This is the Courage to Be podcast, and I am your host, Tanya Vasallo. Before we get into this episode, I'm thrilled to share that I'm hosting a series on how people's lives have been influenced by the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. If you'd like to learn and apply how to think and grow rich, go to the show notes to get some wonderful free resources and join the Courage to Be community. I look forward to being your guide and mentor so you can transform your life. Welcome back to the Courage to Be, where we have powerful conversations to transform your life and your business. And we are continuing with the series of the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Today we have Raven Blair Glover. Welcome, Raven.
Yes, hi.
I am so excited and nervous at the same time because you are known as the queen of podcasting and interviewing. So I'm excited and honored.
Thank you so much. I accept and receive that. I love podcasting. I love, of course, when I heard that you were doing the Think and Grow Rich series, I was like, oh, that book has so changed my life, So I'm excited to be here and to share because, it changed my life totally.
So tell us about that.
Everybody, because it has changed millions of people's lives.
Yeah. Did you know that it's the second most sold book in the history of books after the Bible?
That's what I heard. For one while, they were saying it was one of the first after the Bible, and people were looking at it as their business.
It is.
Bible.
It is the first book. If you take out a religious book, the Bible is the most sold, and then Think and Grow Rich is the second. That's amazing. How has it transformed your life? You're saying it just transformed your life. Like, what's your story with Think and Grow Rich? How did it occur for you?
Well, you know what? How it occurred was really in a very unique way. I was working sometime in the 80s, so it's been that long since I've got it. I don't even know how old I am. I'm 72 now, so about, I guess that's 30 something years, right? Or something like that, since the 80s. So I was working at a job called Publishers Discount Warehouse, and we were selling magazines over the phone. People would call in, they'd be entered into a sweepstake, and we would enter them into the sweepstakes and then sell them some magazines afterwards. And it was like two sales rooms, about 30 something people in each room. And we had this manager, his name was Barclay Fisher, he's general manager. And he was always motivating us and telling us, to go for our goals, and just very inspirational. And then he said one day, I've got something for all of you. And he came in, he gave out this book, this white book with green and gold, and it said, Think and Grow Rich. And he said, starting tomorrow, everybody, because we had to be at work, I think like at 7 or 8 in the morning. He said, everybody has to be here an hour earlier, and we're going to go through this book page by page. So that's how I was introduced to Think and Grow Rich with Barclay Fisher. Hey, Barclay, if you're watching this. And here's the cool thing about Barclay. He introduced me to Think and Grow Rich, took us through the course, and he was my very first mentor I had, because he took us through that. And The Greatest What a Secret. What's the one with Napoleon Hill? I can't think of it. Something like The Greatest Secrets or something. It was before The Secret. But Earl Nightingale, okay? And so now Barclay is one of my hosts at my station. So now I've been his mentor since 2011, because he's been one of the hosts that I mentor and have on my network, So that's how the times turned. Can you believe it?
Okay. It's amazing, though, the full circle with that.
Yeah,
you never know.
Yeah, and Tanya, I was telling you, I went to Houston first time and seeing my family since the pandemic all together, and I got a chance to see Barkley then. So that was really great too, because he's in his 80s, I'm in my 70s. So these are precious times for us, you know. So it was just really great. We were even talking about doing a show together around Think and Grow Rich, much like yours, similar to yours. I love your show, by the way. And you guys have to listen to her show. What is it? Courage to, what's the name of it
The
again?
courage to be, the
Oh my
courage to
God, encouraged
be.
to be. I've listened to 4 episodes just in the past 24 hours, and I absolutely love it. Great job. Yes, yes, yes. You guys
Thank
check her
you.
out. But anyway, so that's how Think and Grow Rich came into my life. Now, here's the other thing. It was during a time when I was in a really bad marriage, number two. Yeah, marriage number two. Very bad, very controlling, and going through emotional abuse, you know. And so Barkley them were kind of like a lifeline to me. And I would stay in his office and borrow his books and stuff. So that Think and Grow Rich led me to wanting to have the hunger for knowledge, to want to find out more. And so the reason I say it changed my life is because before then I was settling. I was thinking that, you know, as long as I was alive and well, that was probably my ultimate. I didn't have any kind of belief that there was more for me. I didn't have any desires, dreams or goals. It was just living day to day, settling and feeling, okay, well, at least he's not hitting me. I can get through the emotional trauma and all that stuff. But also during that time, one time, I was in the closet looking at one of my husband's, at that time, gun, contemplating ending my life. And so the principles that I held on to in Think and Grow Rich, we'll stick to that book, although, like I said, Barkley introduced me to several others. It made me realize that I had so much more inside. First of all, I would never want to leave my children without their mom. They had already lost their dad through health, my first husband. And the other thing was, are you really going to kill yourself? This guy's going to keep on doing what he's doing. Why would you kill yourself? Just leave. And so Barkley them helped me get into a hotel and paid for it. They took a little bit out of my check at a time, but that job was a lifesaver. The book was a lifesaver to me. And that's my story around Think and Grow Rich.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have goosebumps, Raven, with that story. That is amazing because it goes back to the impact that we have in the
Mhm.
world. You know, I wonder, I'm guessing Barkley knows the impact that he's had on you, you know,
Oh,
the fact
yeah.
just that
Yeah.
he brought that book to you and that he helped you get out of this abusive marriage. But it also goes back to like even Napoleon Hill, you know, of just writing when he got commissioned. Like it, here's what I'm hearing as you're telling that story. It all
Okay.
comes down to decisions, and decision is one of the big chapters in the book. I think it's
That
chapter
is it.
8. And I know
Decision.
that that's
Yes.
one of the ones you like too. You know, that's one of your, you have desire, faith, you told me imagination. We'll go
Mhm.
deeper into those, but it
Yeah.
just shows you because Napoleon Hill was also faced with an important decision when Andrew Carnegie asked him, if I open up the doors and introduce you to all the successful and wealthy men of this time, would you commit yourself to the next 20 years without getting paid to interviewing them? And I don't
Yeah.
know how I would have responded to that decision. And you were placed in a decision in the same way. You were in a closet thinking of ending your life. And instead, you said, you know what? No, I'm doing this for my kids. I'm doing this. I need to get out. Like, why am I going to take my life
Life.
instead of just getting out of this? And you made a
Absolutely.
powerful decision. And so, look at the impact. If you wouldn't have made that decision, Raven, you wouldn't have had all the impact. How many years ago was that when you were in that closet and in that marriage and made that
I
decision?
think, I want to say 80, 85, 88, somewhere in that area. 1985, 1988, somewhere in that
So,
area.
this is almost 40 years ago. And
Yeah,
look
this
at,
is talking
can
about
you share
35
with
years.
us the
Mhm.
impact that you've had in these last 40 years? How many people's
Oh,
lives have you impacted? That if you would have
oh,
not made that
I
decision,
know, hundreds all across the world. And get this, not only that, but I actually can call Dr. J.B. Hill, Napoleon Hill grandson, a friend of mine who I've been blessed to interview 3 or 4 times. And we've talked about the different principles. His story is amazing. I'll have to let you listen to one of the interviews I did of him one time. When I read the book Think and Grow Rich, at that time, Napoleon Hill was alive because I think he passed in the 70s or something, if I'm
70s.
not mistaken, 1970. But I never would have thought that I would be communicating with a family member of his. Tanya, just think about that. Okay, that is humongous in itself. And get this, I'm very, very, very close friends with Diana Nightingale, who is Earl Nightingale's widow. So those two people that he introduced me to are friends of mine now. I can call them on the phone at any time and they will come through for me. And I mean, it's just amazing. And it all happened from me reading Think and Grow Rich. You talked about a desire. Remember, I told you I had a desire to live, but I never had a desire for anything more than just to live day by day and I guess make money or whatever. It's nothing big, nothing like what I'm doing now. And the weird thing about it is, as a kid, I always felt like Casper, dismissed, overlooked, never acknowledged, and all that type of stuff. And so I chose to be on the back burner a lot, behind the scenes a lot. But there was always this excitement, this energy in me where people would tell me, my mom then would say, stop dreaming, stop doing this, pay attention, you're always doing something, because it went from gymnastics to this to that. I was constantly trying to find myself and my place in the world. You know what I'm saying? Because everything inside me was telling me that you're meant for more. And so
Mm-hmm.
reading Think and Grow Rich really opened up my eyes to say, this is not the life that you have to accept. You can attract what you want. You can tap into your imagination, make better decisions, have faith. I think he calls it JB Hill, Dr. JB Hill, Napoleon's grandson, talk about this a lot. Faith, not just faith, but unwavering faith. That's not going back and forth. You know what I'm saying? Having that self-decision, self-discipline, and being able to, dive deep into your imagination, tap into that creativity, because it really is no holds bar once you realize that, and that to me, that makes me think of you being unstoppable on your pursuit, unstoppable in your dreams, not having any limitations. You can go as high as you want or you can stay as low as you want. That's a decision you have to make. And so at 13, I used to sneak to the neighborhood radio station, WJMO, and I found out because that these people were talking to people at that time I thought was all over the world, but it was actually just people in Cleveland, Ohio, where I was raised. And I became fascinated and I wanted to be on radio. But because I wasn't a big tester, a good tester, C and D student, again, because I thought that's the best I could be. Okay, well, I'm not failing, I'm barely passing. And then one day I went to the station. They said, "You're always coming down here. Here, we're going to put you on the radio." And I was like, "Hey, I'm Raven Blair and I'm on the air, WJMO." And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So fast forward to the age of 55, my mom was at the hospital. And here's another decision I had to make. And I had just signed up for a class called Teleseminar Secrets from Alex Mendoza. And I happened to be on a conference call, and he talked about this cool thing called podcasting. This was in 2006. Millions of people could listen to you. You get on a free conference call line, interview experts and authors and coaches, people that had more going on than you, and you would become an expert in return by interviewing them. And so I was like, oh my God, that's kind of like Napoleon Hill. I can go out and interview different people and find out what made them tick. how they were able to get past these things. What were they success strategies? And so I was inspired by Napoleon Hill to do that, but inspired by Alex Mendoza to go ahead and invite these people I never talked to and say, hey, I'm creating a show and it's going to be called Women Power for women like me who want more out of life and determined to get it. And I know that you did this, Lisa Nichols, that you talked about no matter what. Would you be open to coming on my show and talking to my listeners and sharing your story on how you were able to make it despite the odds, no matter what? And Lisa Nichols said yes. And then Les Brown said yes. And then Jack Canfield said yes. And that's how my first show, Women Power, was born from the hospital. Now we have the Raven International Broadcast Media Empire, which includes amazing Women and Men in Power podcast network, Power Me Up radio station, which is an iHeartRadio branded station. And now we have several business channels on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV. All that I was able to master and to create from what I got from Think and Go Rich, from what I got from Barkley, from what I got from Alex Mendoza.
That is a fascinating story. And I have so many different questions to detangle that you can answer within that. But did it surpass? I mean, because this young girl, like you said, you had this dream, you wanted to be on the radio, you wanted to talk, and it didn't happen until age 55. I want to go over that part again, because I think it's a very important point for our listeners, because so many people, it's funny because we study Napoleon Hill's material on a daily basis. We have a daily study group at the Institute. And today, and I lead some of the Spanish classes. I'm one of the few coaches in the Latin division. And in today's chapter, we're towards the end of the book of the 6 ghosts of fear. And one of the ghosts of fear being the fear of old age. And we were talking about the fact that many people give up and they say, oh, I'm too old. I can't do this. I can't do that. And so I'm circling back to this because I have to give you kudos for saying, you know what? I'm starting my radio show at 55. And it could have been at 75. And it could have been, and not everyone would do that, Raven. So first, I take off my hat for you, my fictitious hat. I wish I had my hat like yours, your beautiful hat that I take off in your honor, going for it. But again, you made a decision at a young age. You had this huge dream. You had this unwavering desire to be able to speak on the radio and to be a radio host. And look at all the famous people that you've interviewed. Did it surpass your dreams, or was that part of the initial dream?
It definitely surpassed my dreams. I remember one time interviewing, I don't know if you're familiar with Montel Williams. At that time, he was a big talk show host on TV. And I remember being on a free conference call line, like Alex said, listen, guys, no fancy stuff. Free conference call. I interviewed Oscar winner Lou Gossett Jr., all these people without no fancy mic or anything. Okay. And I remember he was sharing a story about when he thought he was going to die and he was on a girder. What do you call it? Girder? I can't think of the name of it. You know, when they pick you up and you're laying there, the ambulance comes
to the ambulance,
stuff like that. Yeah. He was laying there on that stretcher or whatever, and he kind of seen this life flash before him. And I heard Montel's voice crack. I could hear him holding back tears and stuff. And he was just sharing heart to heart with me his experience. And I remember just tears were coming out my eyes of unbelief, of I just couldn't believe I was talking to Montel Williams. You know, it was just such an unbelievable moment. And then years later, to be sitting on the phone, actually on the same free conference call line, talking to Dr. J.B. Hill, Napoleon Hill's grandson, listening to his story about how his granddad gave him the Think and Grow Rich book. And I think he said at that time, maybe $5 or something. I think it was a quarter. It was some little amount of money, but you got to remember how many years and decades of years ago when 25 cents meant a lot more than it does now, right? And he was talking about this girl that he liked, you know, he was dating, and she got the book and he gave her the book, not knowing the value of the book. And he talked about because he started being part of the Napoleon Hill institutions and learnings and stuff late in life, and how he wished he had known because he gave her the autographed copy of the book that his granddad gave him. So imagine that. You know what I'm saying? So just hearing that story, I just couldn't believe it. I read this book. I am talking to a family member, Napoleon Hill's grandson. And that was just a in awe moment. Those two come to me, Montel, and then of course Napoleon Hill. And I got to say Diana Nightingale too, because this is stuff that you can't even imagine when you're reading a book, when you're learning about something, that this is going to be my life down the line. Here, when I was sitting in that closet, I had no idea, but every instinct was telling me, do not do it. And believe me, my life was horrible back then. Horrible back then. I was an emotional mess, and I just could not see anything good for me. I figured my mom and dad would take care of my kids, but then like they lost their dad for health reasons. I wasn't going to take my own life. Plus, I'm very spiritual. And from my understanding of growing up in a Baptist church and reading the Bible, that was the one unforgivable sin. So so you want to go to hell? You know what I'm saying? So I quickly got out of that, but I knew I couldn't continue staying there because something was going to happen. So when Barclay them put me up in that hotel, and I had the Think and Grow Rich book, I remember being in that bed reading it over and over again, and how it talked about, you have to have that faith that there's much better. You have to have that faith within yourself, and it has to be unwavering faith. You got to make better decisions, and you can't be going back and forth on your decision. If you're deciding that you're not going, and this company put you up in the hotel to keep you safe, and they have people watching out that your husband, cannot come up here to the room and all that stuff, and they would make sure I got to the hotel safe and in my room, you can't decide to go back there. You know what I'm saying? So it was a time that I had to make lots of decisions, and I understood the meaning of making a decision. Just like when I decided I wanted to start my show after hearing Barclay said that, my mother was in the hospital. She was in ICU unit, and I was living at the ICU unit with her while I was on the phone listening to Alex inspiration and motivation. And I grabbed a piece of paper and I said, what do I need to do and where do I begin? And because I lived at the hospital in the ICU unit ward, sleeping on the couches and chairs with other people, the nurses said, hey, we see your dedication. You're always on the computer. You're always trying to learn. When the chief of staff and his staff leaves, you can come and use our private computer and do your work, your research, because you can't take up the computer all day in that one room that everybody has to share. And I would go in there and put, what is a podcast? What do I need to do? How do I interview? And that's how I learned everything. And that was February 6, 2006. April 23rd, 2006, just a few months later, I launched my first show, Women Power, which has gone on to win many awards. I told you now we have the Raven National Broadcast Media Empire. But that all came from making a decision. And one thing that stuck with me when I was in the chapel praying is what the words that came to me that I feel came from my God was, you need to step up, show up, and grow up. And I remember walking out the chapel in my head saying, step up, show up, and grow up. And what came to me was step up and be the daughter that your parents raised you to be. Because my parents had a chain of restaurants in Ohio. We wore the best clothes. We lived in the suburban area. So I didn't have that type of story. Okay. And then show up. Your mother is really hurting. So you gotta figure out something, because you're making $10 an hour, working 20 hours a week at the age of 55. You can't help yourself. How are you going to help your mother? And then grow up. Take a look at the woman in the mirror that you are, and stop making excuses for yourself, because if it's meant to be, it's up to you. You've read those books. You know that you can change your life. Why are you still settling? And so I went back to Think and Grow Rich again. Went back to those principles again. And that's really what I give credit to me being able to build something from a hospital that's turned into a broadcast and media empire.
That is fascinating. And I love you need to show up, step up, show up, and grow up. I
Mhm.
took note of that one. I'm going to use it. That is the quote of today's episode, Raven. That is fabulous. We're going to do one little pause here
Okay.
and we'll come right back because I have a couple more questions for you. How many times have you looked around at the people you love and realized I'm different? You think differently. You feel like your view of the world is different from the rest. You have a constant and consistent appetite for more. You want more success, more fulfillment, more energy, more mental strength, more deep relationships, more happiness. If you feel a longing for any of these things, then I'd love to have you to be part of the Secrets of Success Mastermind community. And don't feel like you have to commit to anything right now. I'm not asking for any type of contracts or anything like that. All you have to do is say maybe and test drive the Secrets for Success for free for 30 days and see for yourself. Just click on the link on the show notes because when you do this, your life might take a big turning point. So this is fascinating. Your unwavering faith. There's so many principles that you put into action. Some of
Hmm.
them, I'm guessing, unconsciously, not even knowing, and that you
Yes.
circle back now, like your faith, your unwavering faith, the fact that you had this vision since you were a little girl and then you fulfilled it. So I want to ask you a couple tips, like for someone that has a dream and kind of doubts or you have that desire, like let's go back to chapter, you know, 3, your desire, and you have
Hmm.
this desire. But I feel like as we get older, as kids, we're really good at imagining and playing pretend. But then as we get older, it gets beaten out of us. What would you
Yes.
say to someone that might be listening that's just kind of, they might be midlife, late 30s, 40s, 50s, and they're like, oh no, I just have to stick to my job and do what I have to do.
Hmm.
I'm just a parent, go through the motions. And they've kind of like shoved all those desires in a back drawer in their mind. How do we bring these desires back out? And especially because you're such a great example with your desire being fulfilled at age 55. It's not like an overnight sensation that happened
No.
in your 20s. Do we do, Raven?
Well, that's a very good question. And it took me years to figure that out. I think the first thing that we have to do, and my son used to tell me, Mom, you got to meditate. You have to meditate. You have to sit still because you're always moving around. Listen to the voice inside you guide you. And I ignored that for years, Tanya, until I was forced, because I was at the hospital by my mom's bedside, to sit still. You see what I'm saying? Had that never happened, I probably would have never sat still long enough to really look at where I was. I remember looking at my mom in bed and saying, wow, I wonder if mother did the things she wanted to do. I wonder if she lived her dreams, because she was just laying there so helpless. And here's the matriarch of her family, very strong woman. And then I started asking myself, well, what about you, Raven? If you were laying there, could you say you lived your life to the fullest? Are you, going for your dreams? And these are the things that I was thinking. And then that's what led me to go to the chapel to pray for mom. And the message was, she's going to be okay. But how are you going to help her? You got to step up, show up, and grow up. And so I would tell them to definitely meditate, figure out what you really want in your life. You've been the mom, maybe. You've been the dad, you've been the daughter, the great daughter and all this, husband, wife, partner, and you've been doing most of your life things for everybody else, including your kids. Now you need to look at, what do you want out of life? Are you being fulfilled? Is your life cup being fulfilled? I have a friend named Cinnamon, and she's been through several brain surgeries, and she always has the best attitude. And I asked her one day, I said, Cinnamon, how do you go through it? How are you able to stay so positive? And she said, Raven, and here's another thing I want to pass on to your listeners, to your question there. She said, I make it my intention each and every day to get more life out of living and more living out of life. That is so profound, right? I said that to Les Brown. He said, whoa, Cinnamon, I got to write that down, you know? But yeah, so make it your intention each and every day, especially once you sat still and you meditate and you're very clear on what you want out of your life. Do like my friend Cinnamon said, make it your intention each and every day to get more life out of your living and more living out of your life. In other words, go for it. Be an appreciation for what you have, but take action and have that unwavering desire and faith and imagination. Just go with it. No holds barred. Don't let anybody tell you you can't, because as long as you can breathe and you're healthy enough to do what you want and it doesn't hurt or infringe on anyone else, it goes back to that saying I learned in grade school, and you may remember too. If it's meant to be, it's up to you, me, us. You have everything inside of you. Here's where that unwavering faith comes. Trust your gut, trust your soul, trust your imagination, trust your all that you have inside, and be clear of where are you going? What's the purpose of all this? Is it to help family members? Is it to live a better life? Is it at my age, and those of you that are in your 50s or 60s, you're probably thinking of legacy. Is this part of your legacy? And just go for it. That's the best advice. I can't tell you anything that you haven't heard because it's the basics. Go back to the basics. What is it that you want? It's okay to have what you want, but go for it and don't set limitations on it. And step out of the box. Stop staying in the frame of the box. Invest to get leaders. I have invested so much money. I was listening to one of your shows, I think it was yesterday, and this person, I can't remember who it was, talking about masterminds and how much they invested in different masterminds and stuff. You can't do it alone. That was one of the biggest problems. I had all this stuff inside me, but I needed somebody, as Les Brown said, that you can't see the picture for being in the frame. I needed somebody to look at Raven, look at what I really wanted. And we were talking about Lisa Sasevich. This is one person that helped me do that. And say, oh, this is what you're going for. This is what you need to stop doing. This is what you need to do. All of us need this. I remember being at an event with Jim Rome about a year before he died, the great Jim Rome. And he spoke. And then after he spoke, people were in the hallway wanting to meet him and take pictures. And he did it during the break. But as soon as that break was over, he said, look, I'm going to get knowledge like you. I'm going to sit down. We can meet later. Lisa Nichols did the same thing. I seen her at an event. These people still learn, y'all. They're not just teaching, they're still as students. And both Jim Rome and Lisa Nichols, they inspired me so much because they sat in a seat just like I did. And they took pages and pages and pages of notes. They didn't let the celebritism around them. You know what I'm saying? These are the things we have to do if we want to be that amazing client, that amazing speaker, that amazing mentor. Then we have to do what they do, and study at night, cut the TV off, get up early in the morning, make those cold calls, do what it takes. As far as our life, we have to say, hey, this is my dream. I deserve to have it. And go for it.
Wow, Raven, you are such an inspiration. I feel like this is not going to be enough. Like, we definitely are going to have to do like another episode or something, because you're touching on so many subjects, and I don't want to interrupt because I'm like looking all the golden nuggets you have there. Let's go back. I'll reverse engineer as we're talking of the last subject. The last one that you just touched on was gathering specialized knowledge. And I love that you're sharing about Lisa Nichols and
Mhm.
Rowan, yeah, of
Mhm.
just going back and not letting their celebrity status, like put them up on a pedestal and say, oh, well, I don't need to learn anything else. That's the arrogant and that's the egoic way of moving through the world. And
Yeah.
in my opinion, when you can see people and hear these kind of stories about them, it's fabulous because it gives us permission to go out and learn, to have that beginner's mind. And actually, it's one of the chapters in Think and Grow Rich that Napoleon Hill talks about is become clear, like what you're saying. What is it that you
Mhm.
want? Then take action. And you have to invest in specialized knowledge because we don't know it all ourselves. And like you were saying, then the next step is a mastermind. And that particular episode that you're referring to is Justin Benton,
Oh,
who
okay.
is the partner with Russell Brunson of ClickFunnels, who's now
Mm.
become his big passion is everything about Napoleon Hill and all the thought leaders of the late end of the 1800s and the beginning of the 1900s. So
Mhm.
I think it's fabulous that you shared this story of acquiring specialized knowledge, investing in yourself, because you are an example of that, Raven. When you said that you were in the hospital and with your mom and that they gave you the computers to go learn, and you were looking for information and you were in this course and you learned about podcasting. I mean, I didn't know podcasts exist back in the 2006. I thought they
Yeah, I think
started
it
back in
started
like
in
11 or
2000.
something.
Right. I think it started in 2004. So I was really early on. But, the whole thing is, I always tell people my dream found me at the hospital because that was a 13-year-old dream. And here it started, coming in full force, the beginning process in 2006. And it was just, like you said, making those decisions. Okay, this is the way I'm going to go. Alex said the quickest way to become expert is to interview other experts. And that's what I was going to do. And so I tell people I interview my way up. And so I teach people how to interview up. Don't just go after the normal, everyday people. Yes, you want to have them on the show, but stretch yourself, interview up. You know, go for the people that other people dare not want to interview. Jim Roman said yes to an interview. Unfortunately, he passed away,
Mm,
before that happened. I've had a couple of those that has happened. Joan Rivers, yes, we were going to do the
mm.
interview, but it never happened. I have a few people like that, Tina Marie, you know, and I'll never get those interviews. My mom, I never interview my mom. I do something every April. You guys look for it. It's called Interview Your Mom. We call it the Amazing Moms, past and present. And we close down our regular programming on our radio station and our TV networks, and we bring on and air interviews that people have done of their moms, just tons and tons and tons of interviews of their moms. And that's dedicated because I missed the one of my mom. And so, yeah, again, this is tapping into the imagination side of you, the creative side of you. If business owners, us entrepreneurs, start tapping more into that side of us, and just let ourselves be like a little kid. Because, when we're little kids, we can imagine and imagine and imagine and imagine. We still have that within us. Let your imagination take you to the next step. You're trying to figure out, where should I go? You brought up age earlier. And I can tell you, at the age of 72, unfortunately, nobody's knocking at my door saying, we're looking for you. It ain't happening. Okay. I'm constantly having to stay out there. I'm constantly having to read. I'm constantly having to get involved in technology and do the uncomfortable things that I'm not comfortable doing. I still have that Casper side of me very strong when I'm not behind the mic. Trust me. And I know those of you know me saying, yep, she does. I still have to fight those things at the age of 72. I don't think they're going to go away now. They haven't gone away then. So I'm constantly learning and fighting and tapping into my faith, tapping into my desires, tapping into, how much more action can I take to self-discipline in me and my imaginations. You brought up my hat. You want to see something? I had created, I think it was 2018. I had an idea. Me and my husband were we'd always go looking for these hats. I like the bling and stuff. And so one day I remember getting a message at night and it said, design your own hats, design your own style of hats and call it hat wraps. And I got up that night about 2 a.m, wrote down hat wraps. And I wrote down, a little bit of what it would be. I grabbed my little recorder and I recorded, okay, I can see this. They're going to look like this, this, and this. Next day, I mentioned it to somebody. They said, I know somebody that sews, that makes clothes and stuff. And then they told me about somebody else that did this and did that. And before you know, we designed Ravens, what do we call it? Fedora hat wraps. I don't know if you guys can see the pictures of them. Yeah,
That is
got a
fabulous.
patent and everything. I still have not went to the manufacturers. I was telling my husband just a couple weeks ago, I think by the time, I got some plans for this year, but next year or the following year, we're going to unleash these hat wraps. And so this is one of them. This is a hat wrap band. There you go. And
I love it.
the other side is black. So we have reversible ones and all that. I'm not going to take the time to put this back on, but that's by imagination, letting it go and just taking action. Taking action is so important. There you go.
Let's talk a
Hat
little
wrap.
bit more about that, Raven, because this is fabulous. What a great example. Like it first starts with imagination, and that's one of the principles. Well, he calls it utilizing one of our higher faculties,
Yes.
imagination.
Hmm.
It's more powerful than knowledge. And so this is such a clear example that you tapped into your imagination. And you did it in an intuitive way. You allowed for the message to come to you, but then you took inspired action. I like
Yeah.
calling it inspired action.
Inspired action.
You could
Yep.
have just let it sit there and be like, oh, wouldn't that be a great idea? And then someone else will tap into that idea and use it. And then you'll be like, oh, I thought of those reps before them, but you took action. So how do you connect with your imagination? Now, how do you get these answers before you take inspired action? Like, do they come in meditation, or in this particular case, it came to you in the middle of the night when you were
Most of them
dreaming
come to
about it?
me. Most of them come to me when I'm needing something, when I feel like something's missing in my life or in my business. And yeah, I end up sometimes crying depending on the level of pain that I'm feeling or sadness that I'm feeling. Sometimes, and then sometimes it could just come from a joy that I'm feeling, and it's like, okay, this is your next step. So it always comes unexpected. Like this came unexpected in the middle of the night, and it came from us, just looking and looking for the type of hats I wanted. But also, whenever I would catch the plane to speak, we're taking like about 8 hats in my suitcase. So now we have this. Joe Vitale calls it my 10-in-1 hat wraps, because we can take about 5 of these and they're reversible and put them in a bag, and that's it, and a couple hat bands, and
It's
that's it.
it's it's wonderful. So anyone that likes wearing the hats, now Raven, we'll put it in the
Yeah,
show notes where you can go get her hat wraps. This is fascinating.
I
But
know. But then another time, real quickly, I want to share this because last year, and I'm bringing this up because you talked about age earlier, right? And how some people, you were asking me, how do people keep going at a certain age or something? Well, when I turned 72 last year, April 12th, I felt blessed being 72, but I started wondering, okay, do you still wear your hats, Raven? Do you still carry your microphone when you go out? Do you still do what you're doing? What do you do at 72? It's like, how many of us have really thought about, when I get 72, I'm going to do this, this, and this, which is, I'm thinking about starting a show called 70ish and Beyond, because I don't think nobody really prepares for this. And so I was like, I kind of started spiraling down. I mean, fast, down, down, and to depression. And then one day I was thinking, I can't hit rock bottom. What am I going to do? And I said, well, I'm starting to feel like Casper again. I'm starting to feel dismissed, Because, like I said, nobody's knocking on my door. Nobody's saying, hey, Raven, come over here and talk about podcasters. I've been in this since 2006. Where is all the people? Come ask me to come talk. You know, this and this and this and this and this. You know, as you know, I reached out to you, right? I reached out to you. I seen something you posted and I reached out and asked you, hey, I love this, you know. And I'm big about doing that. Do not wait for people to give you permission to succeed. Give yourself permission to succeed. Don't be afraid to ask them when you see people, summits and podcasters, hey, I have a lot to say about this. Are you open? Don't ever say interested. Are you open to getting on the phone and let's chat about it or something like that? And so thank you for allowing me to be there. But during that time, my husband happened to run across something and he says, I think you should look at this. And it was creating a virtual space without the Zoom, or without the screens in between, where you and people be sitting in the same room and on the couch, kind of like metaverse, but not quite. I looked at what they had and I started building something like a dollhouse for people that are feeling lonely, for people that feel like Casper, for people that feel ignored, for people that feel lonely, because podcasters work in their studio and they work at home. It's called Pod Unity Connect. And it's this big virtual platform. We have 72 rooms in our virtual building. It's called Pod Unity Connect. We pick up our listeners and our guests in a virtual car, in a virtual limo, in a virtual plane. That's my imagination. So I took what they did, which was put us in a room, and I decided, well, I'm going to go out and now we're going to have listening parties. We build these big old rooms where people can come listen to interviews and stuff. And we're going to be the first to go and pick up our guests and bring them over virtually. When I interview you for my show, I'm going to actually pick you up on our pink virtual plane and bring you over.
I love it. May it be a private jet, please.
Yes, you're VIP.
I
Absolutely.
love it.
Absolutely. And so that brought me back up, but I was so scared. I cried so many nights. I just felt like I don't know who I am at this age. And this April, I'll be 73. I'm back and wilder than ever.
I love it. And thanks for your vulnerability with that, Raven, because I'm sure you're not the only one. And
Mhm.
today's chapter in the book and our daily study, actually, yes, we talked about the six ghosts of fear for anyone
Yes.
that doesn't know them or hasn't heard them in the book. The six ghosts of fear, according to Napoleon Hill, are the fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, the fear of loss of love, you know, someone that you love,
Mhm.
ill health, fear of old age, and fear
Mhm.
of death. And so
Yeah.
we
And
covered
I was
old
a
age
lot
and
of
death
those.
today. And
Yeah.
so it's fascinating to me that you're saying this at 72, because I can see your spirit is so, you are so alive. Like to me, 72, I see you as the little girl that you were mentioning. To me, I do not see you as a 72-year-old, and or whatever the perception of what a
Yeah. And
72-year-old
I
should
agree.
be.
I agree. I have a lot of childlike stuff in me, you know, in me, because
You
then my
have
mom
the
didn't have
spark. You
I
have
have
the
the spark.
spark, Raven.
I have
And
the spark. People tell me all the time, and I feel so good about that. I pray that I will have that spark well into my 80s and 90s, you know. But I do feel like we are dismissed as we get older, you know. But then I looked at, I can't think of Robbie's last name, but every time I look on Facebook, she's old. I believe she's probably my age or older. She's always getting a different award. She's always, and she's not, you know, she's always broadcasting, and I'm always respond to her because she's a great inspiration for me, you know, to see somebody that's my age or older still doing it, still being involved. And a lot of times it may mean, and I want those of you that are late 60s and 70s, you'll start to see things dying down, especially if you're not, like, I'm not a big social media person. I'm getting ready to be, but that's really pushing my Casper a lot. Okay, really. You guys, when you see me on there, please like and share. I'm like,
we will, Raven, we will.
And so I want to say to you, if it's meant to be, it is up to you. And if you want to stay relevant for as long as you want to stay relevant in your business or in your life, you do have to step up. You do have to show up, and you have to show up big time. You almost have to work harder at it. And I know it is, I mean, the social media and learning all this stuff, I can feel a difference. Regardless how vibrant I might be, it's tougher for me to read a book or listen to something and put it together than it used to be. I used to put a lot of stuff together in the course of a year, maybe 12 different things. Now, if I can get 2 or 3 things done in a year that are pretty big, applaud yourself for it. So, but you have to stay out there and you have to get on social media. It's going to be a challenge for me, but I'm going to do it because social media nowadays is so important. I heard on the news a few weeks ago that they're actually, when people apply for a job in college, guess where they're going to look? At their social media, because their social, no matter what they tell them in their office, their social media is going to tell them who that person really is, or it's going to give them what they feel they need. So be careful if you're young in what you put on your social media. It's almost like I tell people, okay, tattoos are nice, but after a while, you got to think ahead. Okay, get a couple tattoos, but do you want to really get them all like this and all like that? Unless you're going to be free to be me person. But if you're expecting things to be a certain way, you know how the society is and what they represent. So, you have to get out there and you just have to stay ahead and be okay with doing like I did. Reach out to the person and say, hey, I'm qualified to be part of your series. Would you be open to us at least discussing the possibility? And if you have a podcast or radio show or something to give them, it's okay. I think I told Tanya, I'm going to do a series. I'd love to have you on mine. You know what I'm saying? You have to do that because otherwise you will fade off into the sunset. But thank goodness we have, Tanya, our era has now what our family, my mom and dad didn't. You can't Google my mom and dad and their name come up at all. Okay? At all. The success of their restaurants, none of that comes up. We're at the age now where we can do books, we can do podcasts, we can do radio shows, we can do summits, we can do all this stuff. We can be on social media and our mark is left. Our blueprint is left. We're not wiped away from this earth. That's a good thing.
I love that. Because we're going to take one more pause here, and I want to come back to this whole idea
You didn't know
of
you were going to be
age.
doing a 3-hour show with me, right? They don't call
No,
me the talk show maven for nothing.
uh-huh. I love it. No, I love it, Raven. I could do a whole day series with you, of just like golden nuggets and just be in this conversation because I love this conversation. So we're going to take one more pause and we'll come right back. How many times have you looked around at the people you love and realized I'm different? You think differently. You feel like your view of the world is different from the rest. You have a constant and consistent appetite for more. You want more success, more fulfillment, more energy, more mental strength, more deep relationships, more happiness. If you feel a longing for any of these things, then I'd love to have you to be part of the Secrets of Success Mastermind community. And don't feel like you have to commit to anything right now. I'm not asking for any type of contracts or anything like that. All you have to do is say maybe and test drive the Secrets for Success for free for 30 days and see for yourself. Just click on the link on the show notes because when you do this, your life might take a big turning point. So let's come back to this idea of age. I just love how you've dissected it, how it's felt to you at 72 and still saying, you know what, I'm not going to be forgotten. What's your legacy? What do you want to leave for those, if we find you 100 years from now, what did you come to do on this planet, Raven?
I come to represent the Casparians in the world. Now you're going to make me cry. Those people that have felt dismissed most of their lives, those people that have felt unacknowledged, overlooked, those people that have had to climb their way to the top with not a lot of support, not a lot of help. I remember being a kid and never feeling like I get into the in crowd. I remember being a young adult, never felt like I could be in the in crowd. I tried track, I tried this, no matter what I did, I just couldn't get there. And I felt that most of my life. And I know when I created my radio station, or I should say I did not know when I created my radio station that it would give me the power within me to help people that felt like me and to grow myself and to really get out there. I learned that if you want to be on a magazine and nobody says no, create your own freaking magazine. If you want to be on a podcast or a radio show or a TV show and everybody said no, create your own. If you wanted to be in a book and everybody said no, or you didn't have the money to invest to be in a book, create your own book. Again, if it's meant to be, I learned this in my grade school. If it's meant to be, it's up to me, you, us. Give yourself the permission to succeed. I remember being in Hawaii in 2016, visiting my son. And I got an email that said, "You've been nominated for the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award." I thought it was a joke. And I just shut down my computer. How dare this person play jokes with me like this? And then the next day, another email. And then one day, I was getting ready to download some stuff on my computer to look at during the 5.5 hours that we would be traveling on the plane. And it said, "We need to hear from you now. Barack will be leaving the office January 16th or whatever it was. You've been nominated. Do you accept this nomination? Because if so, we're going to need some things from you before we can tell you if you're going to be awarded." And my son happened to be over me. I said, "Oh, I'm so sick of these people doing this." My son, let me see. He said, "Mom, I think this is real. They got a phone number there. Call it." And we called it and found out it was real. I hold in my hand my Presidential Lifetime Achievement pin. I have my award. It's over there, signed by Barack Obama. And so I feel like that was God telling me, "You've done well, child. You've done well."
Oh, I'm tearing up, Blair. Raven, that is amazing.
So don't ever think that you can't do. And don't ever think people aren't watching you. You just never know.
You
You
never know.
just never know what will happen in your life. And just think, I was in that closet, 1980 something, 85, 86, trying to decide if I should continue living, if I was worth it. And now at the age of 70, I've built all these things, thanks to thanks to God first and the books I've read and the mentors I invested in, even when I didn't think I had the money. The investment was more than what I was bringing in. I listened to another one of your shows and someone was saying, you figure it out. You don't know how you're going to pay for it, but you just know everything in your gut is saying, this is for you. It's calling your name. It's going to give you what you're looking at. That's that opportunity that you keep hearing knocking on your door. Stop trying to peek in it and see if you should go. Just go in it and don't look back. That's what I did at the hospital after hearing Alex say the quickest way to become an expert is to interview experts. What have I done? I've interviewed up. Why did I get this pen? It is a service award for the service that I have been providing in my industry. Oh my God, I wish my mom and dad was there for that. They weren't, but I took this picture right here. I put it in my pocket of my mom and dad, and they were there. Yeah, they were.
Oh,
And now after I'm gone, I already told my husband, everybody, my grandson gets that award. The award will be passed on to my grandson.
wow, that is beautiful. Let's touch on one more thing of the Casper and doing the uncomfortable things, like you just mentioned right now, investing in yourself, paying for the courses, not having the money. It goes back to trusting, and if you want to reap those rewards, what can you say to our listeners that are, maybe facing a hard decision? It goes back to you have to make a decision, but you also have to take action. And with that action, most likely you have to do something uncomfortable. How do we overcome that, Raven?
It's not easy. Like I told you guys about me and social media, big in broadcasting, very small in social media, very, very small. And that's a fight I still fight. I just say, be in it to win it. Stop sitting on the bench on the sidelines. and be in the game of life, the game of business, the game of reaching your goals, or whatever it is, the game of good health, by being in it to win it. Do the thing to have the power. You got to. If you want to have that dream, that goal, the power, you got to do what it takes and have that unwavering faith. Make those decisions. Stepping out the box and doing the uncomfortable is so hard. It's much easier to say it than to do it. I get it. Find a partner that's strong in that area and invite them to help you. But in order for someone to help you, you got to help them help you. Give them something. Make the first step. I always tell my clients, you make the first step, I'll make the next two. But I can't drag you across the finish line of your challenge. You have to spend some time and figure out, what is it that everybody else is doing that I could put my spin on it that's going to make a difference. I love to dance, but I ain't about ready. You're not going to see me dropping it like it's hot on social media. I might not be able to get back up. No, so I have to stand out in my way. How do I stand out? Part of my branding is my hats. So that's one of the ways to stand out. Find a way that you can stand out that's authentic to you. Because the thing that sometimes I've tried some of the other stuff and it was so tiring. Why was it tiring? Because it wasn't authentic, Tanya. It wasn't authentic. It was like, oh my God, what am I going to have to do today? Am I going to have to do a flip on social media? It's getting hard, right? So you just got to be okay with doing things that are uncomfortable. And here's a golden nugget for sure. Be okay with not being perfect at it. It's okay to not dot all the I's and cross all the T's. You don't have to get it all right. And it doesn't have to be big to be great. Just do the doggone thing. Don't wait, or it may be too late. Too late meaning no telling what may happen. That we are living in an uncertain world. For those of you that are older like me, you still got it in you, baby. The fat lady ain't sang nowhere. She hasn't sung yet, and I don't hear her voice nowhere around me. You don't hear her around you. And I learned from Les Brown. I had a chance to interview him, I think a year or two ago. And he was saying, I said something and he cut me off. He said, Raven, don't say that. Self-talk is so important. Self-talk is so important. What comes out your mouth and go in your mind, be very careful of what you speak. Very careful. I'll say this with a story and close it off. I remember being on a radio station that I had set up on Live 365 years ago. And it was so much going on. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sick of this. I'm so da 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 da. And me and my husband was eating lunch. I said, I can't stand it. I hate this thing. I got home and I said, let me check the station. And there was an email and it said Live 365 is shutting down at the end of the month. I spoke it into existence. And I was like, what? What do you mean? What am I going to do? So what I was upset about, I spoke it into existence and it was even worse. I had people that paid me to be on my station and I had to start hunting and find another way and all that stuff. Be careful what you speak. What you speak about, you'll bring about.
It's such a powerful reminder that Les had for you. It goes back to chapter. See, I'm associating everything to the book, the chapter on auto-suggestion. And we practice this.
Auto-suggestion. How did I forget that one? Absolutely.
The words you say, the thoughts you think, that's why the book is called Think and Grow Rich. What are you thinking on a constant basis? And if it's not good thinking, if it's not good speaking, you have to find new ways of replacing those words with the positive ones. Guard your consciousness, what you're allowing into your mind, and speak the right words. Wow, Raven, you have been outstanding. I love your energy. I love your spirit. 72 and on, I know you will be sharing so many golden nuggets and words of wisdom with us and with our audience. Thank you so much for your time here.
Oh my God. Thank you. Well,
Be-
I'm shooting for 104. Just so y'all
yes,
know,
I like it.
that's what I'm shooting for.
You're speaking
Uh,
it into
I'm
reality.
speaking it
We'll
into
have you.
existence. Yes, yes, yes. So, and I intend on, whether anyone does it or not, on staying as relevant as I can to support women and to support those Casparians. I see you. I see you. I see you. It's time for you to step out of the shadows into the spotlight because you're the leader many of people are looking for. They just don't know where to find you. So broadcast your way. Let people know you're out there. You got the tools nowadays, whether it's social media and broadcasting, whether you're broadcasting an email, whether you're broadcasting in a book, an audio series, social audio, podcast, radio, TV. There's so many ways. And I want you to really think about those of you that are my age and your parents are gone. They're gone. And there's no traits of them left, right? But you can bring life to what they did. Yeah. And you have an opportunity to leave a digital and audio and video footprint. Isn't that amazing? So don't let all that go to waste. Do not let all that the resources and God and the universe have given to us go to waste. You got it in your hands. Make the decision. Have that unwavering faith. Don't be afraid to use your imagination and have the discipline that you're going to need to succeed. Jerry Rice, a football player, is famous for saying, I will do today what others won't so I can live my life tomorrow like others can't. You got it. All right. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you for saying yes. Let me be
You
part of
are
your series.
amazing. You're welcome. It's been such a pleasure having you, Raven. I've learned so much with you, through you. And again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. And bye-bye, everybody.
I am so grateful that you joined me today. If you enjoyed it, there's one thing I'd like you to do. Click on the follow button so you don't miss a single episode. Leave me a rating and a review, and please share. As my way to thank you, email us a screen grab of your review at the email in the show notes, and we will send you a free Crafting Your Future guided visualization, which is so simple to do with outstanding results. It will empower you and give you the confidence to attract and create the life you've always desired. See you in our next episode.